Hello everybody, welcome to Casey's Garage. Today's a really interesting day because there's a new regulation from the API, which is the American Petroleum Institute. What they do is they regulate what kinds of oils that you can use. That way you know what kind of oil you're getting just by looking at the regulations. Now what's really interesting about what's going on with the new regulations of the oil is it was actually something that the manufacturers pushed for. Now the reason for that is because the automotive industry is changing. Now fuel regulations are becoming stricter and stricter every day, and for that reason they're having to build smaller and smaller engines, but they still require the power, which means more and more of them are being turbocharged, which a smaller engine with a turbocharger is more efficient than a larger engine. That's just the way it works. Unfortunately, that means that you put more wear and tear on your average vehicles, although it does make them so that they're more moddable. So there is definitely a good thing with more turbocharged engines coming into the world. It's important to understand that in order to improve fuel economy, a smaller engine, of course, is definitely a good way to go with a turbocharger, because what that does is that improves the efficiency of the engine. However, if you happen to have high revving engines, things like that, then you end up with engines that are just, they may be smaller, but they're still stuck in a high rev range, which is still killing fuel economy. So you've got all kinds of things going on, like Ford and GM came together and they made a 10-speed transmission that they're putting in vehicles. What that does is all these gears are in there. It's not gonna make it so that you go like 200 miles an hour. It's really close ratios, so that you're always shifting really, but it keeps you down in that low rev range. Now the problem with being in a low rev range and having a turbocharged engine is that causes issues with low speed pre-detonation. Now what that is, well, we'll call it LSPI for short, because we'll say it a lot. So the reason that you don't want to go full throttle on an engine when it's at a low RPM is because there's nowhere for the energy to go. So when it translates into heat, it goes into the cylinder walls, and if you've got heat in the cylinder walls, especially when you're injecting fuel and you're trying to go, what happens is the heat will become so intense, especially in a turbocharged engine. In fact, the biggest issue is in a turbocharged engine. It can happen in naturally aspirated, but it's extremely unlikely compared to the likelihood of a turbocharged or supercharged engine. If you add boost, you add pressure, you add heat, and it makes it more volatile. That's why you want to run high octane fuel in a high performance engine with high compression ratios, because LSPI is an ever-present threat. The higher your compression ratios go, the more heat you put in. That's why modified engines, things like that, require premium fuel, is to prevent LSPI. Now, when you've got the heat soaked into the cylinders, then you end up with hot spots that can cause pre-ignition on the sides. Now, normally when the spark plug ignites the fuel air mixture, it burns uniformly and concisely at the right time, burns down, causes the power to be transferred as the crankshaft has gone over the point where it needs to, so that when the piston is forced down, it's pushing with the rotation of the crankshaft rather than forcing against it, and creates an efficient power. Now, when LSPI happens, then it'll ignite before it was supposed to. That means that the crankshaft is usually not even all the way over where it needs to. So when it does push down on it, because it's igniting and it's putting all that power down, it's pushing against the crankshaft, which is actively working against the force until the crankshaft rolls over and it can push with it. Now, this still can generate some power, but you lose so much of it because the main portion of the power is produced towards the top. You know, the further on it pushes, the less pressure is there, so the less power there is as the cylinder comes down. So you lose that critical moment that creates the most power and the most efficiency to LSPI. Now, The reason that all of this is important, and the reason that you should definitely pay attention to this, is because with all these new turbocharged engines and these 10-speed transmissions, 9 speeds, 8 speeds, the things that are constantly keeping you at that low RPM range, and these are being put in not cars that a car enthusiast that knows these sort of things would get into. You're getting these cars for your average everyday person that just gets in a car and drives, and they don't really know any better. The reason this is extremely important is because if you just get in the car and you floor it before the turbo really spools up and it bogs the engine and it causes these problems, you're going to detonate your engine. Engine failure will become such a commonplace thing that all these engine manufacturers, all these your automotive manufacturers will have such a bad reputation just because they're trying to do this in the name of efficiency, but their engines won't last longer than 50,000 miles or so because there's constant presence of LSPI. So what they did is they went to the API and they said, this is what we need. We need an oil that improves lubrication to the point where it keeps things cooler, to a point that helps prevent LSPI. And we're to a point where the oils are that specific. And this again is why I always say it doesn't matter what engine oil you use, make sure it's synthetic, because full synthetic oils are extremely important. They run more efficient, they run cooler, but they need some tweaking in some of the brands in order to make this, they need to make them more compatible with the newer setups. Now that means while they are definitely going to be required for the next generation of vehicles that's coming out, and they're coming out soon. In fact, Chevy's even got a 2.7 liter 4-cylinder engine that they're replacing the 4.6 liter V6 in the Silverado 1500. That's a video for another day. We can talk about a turbocharged 4-cylinder in a pickup truck later. But for now, the point is all of these things are happening in every facet of the automotive industry, and so they need these oils. Now, the reason that you probably haven't heard of this is because it's still brand new, and oils haven't been approved in this yet, because even if they may meet the requirements, they just haven't finished testing yet. Now, the API service SM and SN are currently the ones that you're gonna see, but the new one is API service SN Plus. Now, what the SN Plus is it's got a special additive pack in it that's going to make it so that it's even more lubricating and helps keep the engine temperature down in the cylinder walls due to just high quality lubrication. And that helps reduce LSPI. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, well, I currently drive a turbocharged car and I'm a little worried right now. What can I do while I'm waiting for all these engine oils to figure out what to do so that they know exactly what oils are worth putting in there and what oils are not? Well, actually, GM has already done this because they were worried about this earlier. So what you want to do is, if you go ahead and look at the oils, and again, I'm not sponsored by anybody, this just happens to be the oil I use, but if you look at this bottle right here, it's a brand new jug. Hold on a moment, let me change the lighting a bit. So, all right. So now we can see, so what we're looking at here is this part right here. It doesn't matter what brand it is, you're looking at this, the DexAus approved engine. Now that's still on a lot of oils, but what you want to look at really closely is it says DexAus Gen 2. DexAus Gen 2 is going to be equivalent to the API SN Plus. So you want to make sure that if you are running a turbocharged engine and you're really worried about engine performance, you want to get the API SN Plus, but before that they have the API SN Plus, you want to make sure that you're at least running GM DexAus Gen 2, because that will be the same guidelines involving SN Plus. So I've actually done a little bit of looking myself just to make sure I know what's out there. There is Gen 2 in Royal Purple, Mobil 1, Castrol. I saw it in a few other oils I can't really remember off the top of my head. But the point is a lot of them are Dexos approved. A few of them are Dexos 2 approved, but one common denominator that I noticed is none of them are Dexos 2 approved unless they're the really high quality oils, which is another reason why you should definitely go with the really high full synthetic quality oils. You know, you don't want to be running the semi-synthetic or the mineral oil. You definitely want to be running full synthetic, whatever your brand happens to be. And make sure, if you're not 100% sure yet, definitely do the research. This is still brand new. They're still doing testing. Oil's going to be released. Like there are new manufacturers making new oils that are going to be SN Plus approved. Some companies don't have something that's SN Plus approved now, but they're working on it and they're making stuff that is. So if your particular brand doesn't have it yet, they will. So be patient, and if you happen to need to switch to one that is, then I recommend looking around, doing your research, find out what oil is best for your setup, and definitely check it out. Like, again, if you're naturally aspirated, it's not going to be as big a deal. There's nothing wrong with putting in the latest and greatest. It's not going to really cause any issues unless there are already issues present. But the point is you want the best oils. So this is what's going to be the best oil. This is the new oil. It's what's going to be changing around. And the most important thing to take away from this is not the oil itself. The most important thing to take away from this is that the oil company is a pre-indicator of what is to come in the automotive industry, which means we can all be ready for smaller engines with turbochargers and more gears. That's what's coming according to what the indications of the new oil is saying. So be ready for that, and let me know what you think in the comments below. If you think that it's just going to be a fad and blow over, if you think that we're going to find new resources, if you don't really care because you drive an electric car, I don't know. Whatever you happen to be doing, whatever you happen to be thinking, let me know in the comments below. Share with your friends. If you drive a turbocharged engine and you want to know more, let me know in the comments. If I haven't touched on something that's really bothering you, whether I spaced it or whatever, let me know. I'll try to touch on it. But this is what's new. This is what's latest and greatest in engine oil, and this is what's going to be happening with the automotive industry. So that's everything for now, and thank you very much for watching Casey's Garage. Feel free to like, subscribe, and share with your friends so that they know what's going on with the new oils. And thank you very much for watching. You guys have a great day.